After many years of reading all sorts of books, we have concluded that the reader is not just the one who reads a book, but also the one who becomes a better person every time he touches a page. Welcome to our critical review of The Fall of the House of Usher.
The story of the fall of the House of Usher takes place in the Usher family mansion, described by the narrator as dark, deteriorated, and isolated. It takes place during a dull, dark, and a day in the autumn of the year. Roderick Usher, the main character of the story, is a male of approximately 50 years old. He is characterized by his paranoid, anxious, and mental instability. His fear descended into madness, a topic that will go in deeper through the presentation. Madeleine Usher, the twin sister of Roderick, is a male of approximately the same age that is characterized by his mysterious and ghostly personality. He also suffers from a cataleptic condition that makes her appear dead. The narrator, who is narrating the story in first person, is the friend of Roderick, and his narration tone is based on his feelings and emotions.
Now starting with the structure, being the first step the racing action, in which the narrator arrives to the house of Roderick, in the house of Usher. In the conflict, Madeleine, the twin sister of Roderick, dies suddenly by unknown reasons. Then, in the climax, the narrator sees Roderick being very scared, and finally, Madeleine appears alive after being buried. In the following action, the narrator gets away of the house running as fast as he could, before seeing that the house of Usher was cracking and falling into the place. In the resolution, the narrator can only see and presents a red moon that represents the legacy of the Ushers chasing him. And finally, in the end, the narrator goes out, just listening the echoes and shadows of the Ushers. In the literary devices, we can present two important symbols. The first one, the House of Usher, being the union of the Ushers family. They fall together and they rise together. And the other one is the red moon, that represents the legacy and the past of the Ushers. Now, finally, with internal and external conflicts. In internal conflict, we've got that Roderick is suffering a lot because he thinks that something very bad is going to come and affect his whole family. In the external conflict, we can see that the narrator goes to help his friend Roderick, but all he can present is that he is very scared and terrified. And as the day passes, Madeleine appears alive after being dead and buried by Roderick. So he starts running away before Roderick gets killed and the house of Usher falls and cracks down.
Thematically, the topic of the story can be identified by many categories, including madness, ghosts, fears, family problems, and also isolation. The message that the story wants to give the audience is that being alone and also being scared can make a person fall and lose the control of his mind, but also perceive things that are out of his control and are out of his quotidian and normal world. This is why in the Usher family they made emphasis in that fear could lead a person to stay trapped in their own conflict with no possible to get out. Finally, the connection to the audience is that based on that trap, on those conflicts, the story shows that too much fear and too much dangerous could cause a mental instability, not also for the body, but also for the actions that we commit in the outside world. Finally, in terms of context, socially during the story, we can see that Roderick and also his family doesn't have normal actions. He doesn't like to be in big cities, he doesn't like to turn the light, he doesn't like to have any contact with society, showing how that mental instability is affecting also the perception of the real and quotidian world. Culturally, the Usher family stay trapped on old traditions and also avoid changes, what makes them stay trapped in the past. That's why having a new contact with a new world make him be scared, may also descend into madness, but we also have a consequence mentally and also in his body actions. Finally, in the individual context, Roderick is the last living member of the Usher family, and he fall not only mentally, he also fall in terms of actions, because he doesn't mean the consequences of his actions, and he practically became alone, sad, and paranoid.
One of the main themes that is covered in this short narrative is the constant fight between kindness and cruelty inside of Roderick's soul. This constant fight is evident in Roderick's decision between burying or not his sister. Why? Because Roderick knew that his sister had a disease that made her look dead, and still he decided to bury her, which was evidently a cruel decision. The kinder decision would be, in that case, not to bury her, because he still had the doubt if she was dead or not. So here the story is showcasing a character that needs to fight between cruel and kind feelings in a decision that determined totally his life and the future of his family. Considering all the interesting characters and triggering themes that are covered in the fall of the House of Usher, we believe this narrative is highly advisable for people that are willing to explore the themes of ignorance and poor decision making. Because if we read this narrative carefully, it can help us improve our critical thinking by realizing how, if we don't think properly and study carefully all our decisions, we can be negatively impacted.
Sometimes when we read Gothic literature, we can see that fear and confusion are dominating. And that's why in the Fall of the House of Usher, we can see that these two categories lead to a people to take terrible choices, especially when they don't fully understand their world, also leading to mental instability and also actional problems. That's why in the Fall of the House of Usher, people's decision to bury a person is a proof of how human ignorance affects also mental instability.
Starting with our first argument about the characters, it consists that Roderick clearly represents the society's trend of making decisions or taking decisions without being enough informed or making a deep analysis of the situation that is happening. It is evidenced in the following quote. The disease of the Lady Madeline had long baffled the skill of her physicians. A sudden apathy and gradual wasting away of the person, and frequent thought transient affections of a partially cataleptical character were unusual diagnoses. This led to the conclusion that even knowing that her sister had a disease that made her look dead, Roderick decided to bury her, showing how humans can take decisions without being enough informed or cautiously about the situations and the consequences these bring.
The burial of Lady Madeline, which is the main topic of this story, portrays the theme of ignorance. Why, you may ask? The quote that you can find here evidences that Lady Madeline was buried alive, as the sounds that were heard by Roderick and his friend were the sounds of Lady Madeline trying to escape from her grave. Why can we evidence ignorance in the burial of Lady Madeline? As we all knew, Lady Madeline had a disease that made her look dead, and her brother really didn't know if she was dead or not. So that decision was ignorant, and it was a poor decision making because he didn't have the knowledge for assuring that his sister was not alive.
Overall, in which the story, The Fall of the House of Usher, is a deep reflection about how humans can take decisions without being enough cautiously or being enough informed about the situation and being conscious of the consequences their actions can bring.
This story is highly advisable for the lovers of Gothic literature, as we evidence the themes of isolation, of solitude, of repression of feelings that are proper of the Gothic literature. If you enjoy these dark scenarios and dark characters, we think you'll love this story.
Finally, we rate the book as a 3 out of 5, and we recommend it to young readers that are starting to take important decisions in this modern world in which we live, and it's a good opportunity to improve the critical reasoning in an academic spot.